Okay, party people, it's me, and I'm talking about essay structuring now that we've gone over paragraph structuring. So if you haven't already, I would suggest you watch that video first because I'm going to assume that you got that and we're just going to embed it into a larger essay. And yes, I heard a lot of y'all's questions. I am going to put these on YouTube. It's going to take me a little bit for them to be uploaded, but then I'll put the links on there. So feel free to share this. However, if this will work for, like however you see fit, if this will work for you with your Google Classroom, cool, knock yourself out. Share, share, share if you think this will be beneficial to students. I don't care where. That's the whole point, is for us to do what we can to help students. All right. So this is how to structure a larger essay, again, with the assumption that you got paragraphing. That the paragraph stuff that I talked about earlier, that would constitute a body paragraph in a larger essay. So let's start with the introduction and literally how do we do these elements of an intro. I'm not making up a lot of this stuff. Otherwise, I don't know why you would trust me. Like, I'm just me. So I'm pulling a lot of this information from several different sources, especially AP teachers that I've kind of begged, borrowed, and stolen from. That's what we as educators do. So this is kind of just a culmination of the good resources I've been privileged to be exposed to that I've taken back to my classrooms in a way that has benefited my students. So otherwise, don't believe just me. I'm just me. Use what works for you. But this has been proven effective in my classroom. So I'm going to start with an intro. I'm going to go over a conclusion later, and I'm going to assume that you got the paragraph structuring one earlier. Those would be the body paragraphs in a larger essay like this. So one of the first things you want to do in an intro, of course, is a good hook. But unfortunately, we see a lot of bad hooks, especially in high school. So I'll give you examples of things that we unfortunately still see, yes, even in the senior level of high school, are really cheesy quotes. Nothing wrong with the quotes themselves or the people who said them, but we'll start off a lot with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, and that's great, yes, love it, but at this point, we hopefully can move beyond that, but students don't know what to do instead of that. Definitions, okay, like, Webster's dictionary defines courage. We know what courage is, for God's sake. Okay, so really cheesy hooks are quotations, definitions, and questions. Have you ever wondered about William Shakespeare? As a reader, I'm going to say no and close your essay and walk away. So the point of a hook is to try to cast a wide net to grab your reader's attention no matter where he falls in the human experience. So we understand the need for a hook, but we can do better. And here's an example of something that I've borrowed from somebody else that I think serves that purpose, but in a better way, in a little bit more sophisticated way. So anytime that you refer to your own opinion or yourself or life or humans in an essay, that's just a tremendous waste of time. But sometimes for my struggling students to understand this idea, I would give them the stem of in life humans. I hate that wording. We're not going to keep it. So English teachers, settle down. We are not going to keep the words in life humans, because what else would we be talking about? Everything that we're talking about is about you and me and literature that's supposed to teach you more about me and you and the human experience. So that's just a waste of words. But it gets them thinking along the lines of where we need them thinking. So we start with just in life humans, and we're going to erase that. And then what? Give me that theme word. So again, this is going to go off of the 2 videos I've already done, the paragraph structuring and the literary analysis. So if you want to go with that the 3 little pig one, then we might say, in life, humans are industrious. Done, okay? We are then going to do 2 things. First, we're going to change the wording of in life humans. See, I scratched it out. I know there's a glare. We're going to change it to we. And yes, that wording is okay. Even for advanced placement, they have okayed that, because we're making ourselves a part of the readership and a part of the human experience. So we're, instead of saying in life humans are industrious, we're going to say we often need to be industrious, okay? So all I've done is I've taken the word we and I've crafted some sentence that adds the word we and the big theme together. That's it. We plus theme. We industrious. And then I just filled in the gap between point A and point B. We often need to be industrious. That's it. The next thing we're going to do, and this helps, I have some students who get past this, but some of them really like it. Again, you're wanting to broaden the readership of your essay. So something that I've asked, I know when I taught on-level sophomores, they really like this idea, whether small or big, okay? So we often need to be industrious, whether that means completing our homework or leading up a major project for a company. And that way, the point of that is to expand that concept of the hook to apply to literally everyone. The point is that your reader's going to go, oh, I've fallen somewhere in that spectrum before, so this must apply to me. I should read this essay. That's the point of a hook. So you're getting to your theme, you're introducing the theme early on. You're not saying, this is specifically about, blah, blah. You're introducing the theme. You're not making it unique to the poem that you're talking about or the movie that you watched or the book that you read. Again, that's defeating the purpose. You're not giving me a summary of that book. You're telling me what it taught you about yourself and about humanity and why we even engage in art and literature and movies and so on and so forth. We often have to be industrious, whether completing our homework or heading up a big project for the company that we work for, whatever. Then you're just going to quickly link that to literature. And I tell my students, you can use literally this sentence. Many works of literature explore this concept. All you're doing is taking this big, broad idea and you're getting slowly more narrowed and focused on the text that we're talking about, the Three Little Pigs, okay? We often have to be industrious, whether completing our homework or heading up a big project for a company. Many works of literature explore this idea. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to get, and I call this the SOS, get the summary out of your system. You are not going to summarize any plot in a later body paragraph. The only place I'm going to allow you to talk plot is in the introduction, and I'm giving you one sentence to do it. So whatever plot commentary you have to make, it better fit into a subject and a predicate and only one. We often have to be industrious, whether homework or project. Many works of literature explore this idea. In the story of the Three Little Pigs, the eldest brother, or the third pig, builds his house of brick while his two siblings stupidly, lazily do not, period. Okay, so give me the plot. If you're wanting to work with a higher level college prep, maybe you're in college and you're wanting to take that one step further, I tell my students, my AP students, summarize through the lens of the character you're going to focus on. So instead of saying, in the story of the Three Little Pigs, three brothers build their houses three different ways using these different types of resources, okay? Instead, if I know I'm ultimately going to be talking about the third little pig, I'm going to write my summary almost entirely about him. So we just wrote Hamlet essays, and some of my students wrote about a secondary character like Laertes or Ophelia. So rather than writing a summary about Hamlet when they were going to be focusing on Ophelia, they wrote their summary through the lens of Ophelia because that's who they were going to be developing their essay about, which that's the idea. You want to narrow your focus. If you're talking elementary, lower elementary, your children at home, they can do this and they don't have to narrow it or go through that lens if that's too big an idea, and that's fine. Your thesis, really all you're going to include here is your writer's full name, first and last. And after that, you're only going to refer to that writer by his last name. You're not on a first name basis with like William Shakespeare, old Bill, Willie, my boy Willie, okay? You're going to use the writer's full name here. And I put writer because if it's a poem, you should refer to him as the poet. If it's a novelist, you should refer to him as the author, whatever, especially for AP that matters. You're going to give me the title punctuated correctly. Longer works like 5-act plays and novels are underlined or italicized, same thing. If you're writing, you underline it. If you're typing and you can italicize it, but they're the same thing. If it's a shorter work like a song or a poem, put it in quotation marks. If it's a movie, underline it. And then your thematic statement. So let me kind of go back and give you the Three Little Pigs example. And again, this is kind of extending the previous two videos. We often must become industrious, whether in doing our homework or heading up a project for our company. Many works of literature explore this idea. In the story of the Three Little Pigs, the third brother, the third pig, invests time and energy to build his house out of the sturdier brick in comparison to his two lazier siblings. I don't know the writer's full name. The writer of the Three Little Pigs focuses on this character to develop and underscore the central message that Industry is necessary for us to be productive members of society. Whatever's that bigger idea, and again, we talked about that in the previous video. If you are AP, and I have this one set aside on purpose, because if you did that, that's beautiful. That is a gorgeous introduction. It ticks all the marks, okay? Like it checks all the boxes. If you are AP, this is what they're really wanting you to do with that third FRQ for AP Lit. So seniors, if you're taking AP Lit, the last thing they want you to do, they don't want you to talk about the two elements coinciding. They'll give you a theme, and they'll say like alienation, discuss a character who experiences alienation and what that contributes to the meaning of the work as a whole. They don't want you to argue that a character experiences alienation and at the same time, this is the central message. They want you to argue that without Ophelia's alienation, we would entirely lose the central message that. Don't tell me that they coincide. Don't tell me that they happen concurrently at the same time simultaneously. Tell me that they are so intertwined that if you take out that Ophelia alienation, whatever it is, that theme idea that they gave you, tell me that if you remove that, you entirely lose the entire central message, whether you agree with that or not. That's kind of the tone that they want you to argue that idea with, and that's how you should end your introduction. AP Lit, open-ended prompt, FRQ. I just would be remiss if I didn't mention that. They want you to argue that you can't have the big idea without this small. That's the point of literary analysis. You don't get the big idea without these small details, hints and clues and characterization throughout. Then you're going to have, I mean, if you're talking 5-point essay, with the Three Little Pigs, it's going to be hard because it's such a short story. You're not necessarily going to have 3 different plot points to focus on to develop paragraphs about. But if this were Macbeth, like we gave examples of, and we're talking about his being greedy and that being bad, then you're going to point out to me 3 different times in the play when he demonstrated greed. And your topic sentences are not going to change necessarily because you're probably thinking, well, what am I going to say? Macbeth is greedy. Here's point number 1. Macbeth is greedy. Point number 2, Macbeth is... No, you say Macbeth demonstrates his greed early in the play. Macbeth continues to remain greedy despite lessons learned. Ultimately, Macbeth retains his greedy demeanor, which is why it's bad. Okay, so that's all you're doing. You're not changing the idea. You're just telling me he's greedy in the beginning, he's greedy in the middle, he's greedy at the end. By the way, AP Lit, you're doing the same thing with your poetry and prose analysis. You're telling me here's the idea in the beginning, here's the idea in the middle, here's the idea at the end. You're analyzing it chronologically. So you give me your 3 body paragraphs. Conclusions are tough. We don't want to hear a summary of what you just said. If I wanted to get a summary or see what you said again, I would just literally look up on the page and read your intro in your paper. So you want to offer something new, but something fresh that's not off topic. That's a tough combination. So oh, look at that, my claim evidence reasoning post there. Okay, thank you, middle school. So something that, this is like a menu of options that I provided for my students, and I said, you know, pick 1, pick 2, whatever. What is a new concept that this to? Or, so if we're talking about Macbeth's greed, like what is something kind of maybe related to his greed, but it's not exactly greed, maybe selfishness, that maybe selfishness was the beginning of his greed, and that had he gone about things less selfishly, maybe he wouldn't have been that way. It's not identical, it's new, it's a new concept, okay? Something similar is off topic but not. Sometimes you'll see students who want to add in a concept like in the middle of a paragraph somewhere that's off topic for what you're technically writing about. I'm trying to think of an example for the Three Little Pigs or Macbeth. I had one student one time who was writing a research paper, and he compared the topic he was researching to like the, I don't know, like the bank industry or something. And that it was fine. It was a great connection he was making. It didn't belong in the body of this essay. So I told him, like, be fine in the conclusion. You can save that and say, you know, well, I had commentary to make about this topic, but it doesn't really fit in the parameters of this essay about Macbeth and greed. But you can throw that in the conclusion. That might be good conclusion fodder. I leave that especially to your teachers to kind of translate that for your students. If you're talking about industry and laziness for the Three Little Pigs, and maybe that makes you think of like how this could be a commentary about, I don't know, American work ethic, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, and you kind of want to go off on that tangent about how we evolved into those types of stories. Great conclusion. Not necessarily the body here, but that could go in the conclusion. Evaluation. This is tricky because students are hesitant to position themselves in the place of evaluating other writers' works. They think, I'm not an expert, so who am I to say how effective it was? Well, actually, that's kind of the level we're wanting to get our readers and writers to, is don't just summarize, don't analyze, don't just analyze and say, like, this was how it was done. Evaluate. Was it effective? What would have made it more effective? So, for example, in the Three Little Pigs, maybe it would have really driven the point home if this is going to sound morbid, if the other two lazy brothers died as a result of that. And in fact, in some versions of the Three Little Pigs, they do. So maybe by softening the results, we also soften the effectiveness of the message that's being driven home, that industry is necessary not only for productivity, but maybe for survival. So you can, this is something that I have to really convince my students, you can absolutely evaluate. What you want to be careful about, though, is, if AP is saying Shakespeare's so great, he's so wonderful, do you really want to disagree with them? But again, like, get them into the habit of evaluating what would have made that argument more effective. These last two, I think, are just easy. This one's kind of cheesy, but this penultimate one, the second to last one, the sociological lesson about humanity. In other words, come back to what we are supposed to learn about ourselves, about society, about humanity from that, and you can talk more at length about that. Like, what is the sociological impact of learning about industry? How do we see that play out in society? What am I learning about myself with industry? If you want to come back to that example that you had in your restatement in the intro, talk about the necessity to do homework, maybe not for the skill of what you're practicing at home, but to sharpen your skill of being industrious and not lazy. So that's always a really good one because it kind of drives home the point of why we read literature to begin with. This last one, if you don't word it carefully, it comes across as really, really cheeseball. But the idea is you want to say, you know what? A lot more work goes into crafting stories than I thought. These were very purposeful decisions that helped me understand a larger point. If you're not careful, it could be like, hey, look at William Shakespeare writing stuff. So you don't want to be like super cheesy. You want to make sure that you're communicating that it was well crafted, that the plot points were manipulated in such a way that it made its intended lesson clear. So that's good conclusion fodder. You can pick any of these. I would not say to do all of them. I tell my students, pick a couple, which one is kind of your jam. This is the one that they tend to gravitate toward the most because it's what we discuss a lot with the titles, that sociological impact. But that's good stuff. So your body obviously would go in between your introduction and conclusion, but hopefully with the previous videos, you got enough of that. All right, y'all, I'm about to leave this germy cesspool. If I need to, I can do some stuff at home. So if you like what you see and you're wanting to see more of the same or more of some different stuff, send me a private message on Facebook, get in touch with me. I'll be happy to do some stuff at home, and even if we have to demonstrate like with little kids, because that's what I got waiting on me at home. All right, keep in touch and good luck.